Drop the gun! Show me your hands!
Welcome to the Weekly Homicide Report, the weekly program where we talk about all the people that needlessly died at the hands of another person. Now let's take a look at this week's graph. Chicago added 11 this week and is on pace for their best year since 2020. Philly added 10 and is also on pace for their best year since 2020. New York adds 7 and retains its lead over Houston for another week, in spite of Houston reporting 8. Our nation's capital shows an increase of 20, which likely means that they had some updates from past weeks, but it's entirely possible they did have 20 homicides this week. They had 2 mass shootings. This leapfrogs them ahead of Baltimore, which reported 7. For some perspective on how bad DC is this year, last year at this time, they reported 155. They've already passed their 2022 yearly total and will pass 2021's total by mid-October if they keep this pace. DC reported 262 homicides in 2002, and yep, they're on pace to top that number too. New Orleans reported 3, which is 25% less than they had at this time last year. And now for some overall yearly totals. Kansas City, Missouri, 143, Milwaukee, 140, Columbus, Ohio, 119, Birmingham, Alabama, 104, Atlanta, 101, Jackson, Mississippi, 70, Minneapolis, 56, Rochester, New York, 41, and San Francisco, 40. There were 14 reported mass shootings, and we currently sit at 520 on the year. After a couple weeks of questionable numbers, we have fallen off our record-breaking pace that we had been on all year. We'll see how this year plays out, but if we don't break the 690 record set in 2021, we will have the second worst year for mass shootings in history. And for some perspective on this, we've already had more than every year, their total year total, prior to 2020, and it's not even October yet. Over 1,300 school-age and younger kids have been killed by gunfire this year, a large majority by someone from the same age range. There were 24 defensive use of a firearm incidents reported, and we're on pace with 2022 right now, which is half the number we had back in 2017 when our yearly homicide totals were much less than they are today. We lost 2 officers in the line of duty this week. I covered both of these in more depth in this weekly video. Deputy Sheriff Marilyn Mayo from Louisiana and Police Officer Darren McMichael from Texas. Thank you for your service. Well, that's all I have for you today, but I'll be back next week with the week 40 numbers. Until then, have a great week, and I'll catch you next week.